Right, welcome back to the channel. So today, going to talk a little bit about chipping. So last time we talked a little bit about the ladder drill. Now this is when you get a little bit closer to the green, in and around the green, and the different shots that I would play. Obviously there's a magnitude of different shots, but we're going to talk about 4 of them today that hopefully will help you in different situations. So I guess the first one and the most basic one is the bump and run. Okay, the bump and run, some people refer to it as the putt chip or whatever you want to call it, is the most simplest chip in its most simplest form. The ball would stay quite close to the ground. It wouldn't have bucket loads of spin on it. It would land and then it would run out to the hole. So I've got a pitching wedge here for this shot. You can pretty much play this shot with anything. I don't really go much below a 9 iron often, but usually it's between a pitching wedge and a 50, depending on how much I want that ball to roll and how much speed I want it to carry. So my concepts and how I play it is very simple. So for me, I like to get the sensation that the club is traveling relatively close to the floor, both sides of the arc, okay? So I like to have what I would call a shallow swing. How I create a shallow swing is I create almost a Y shape with my forearms. I allow my triceps to sit slightly on my ribs, and I very simply almost turn, and I don't utilize much wrist movement. But we do need to hit down in the golf ball, and I do that more so with the setup position. So I'll play the ball slightly back of center. I'll definitely position my weight 70 or sometimes even 80% on my left side. Now that in itself, if I don't change anything, angles my attack angle towards the floor. So now I have a steep setup and a shallow swing, and they match perfectly. So it's a very simple shot. I'll just demonstrate it to you here. Ball slightly back, weight forward, create the Y shape with the arms on the body. I leave my weight on the right side, and you'll see my wrist won't do very much at all. I keep my arms on my torso, and I just rock my shoulders very gently, and the ball will chip and release out to the pin. And that was a pretty good shot. With a pitching wedge, I typically carry it roughly a third, and then it runs 2/3. And that obviously depending on how fast the greens are, wind conditions, ground, all that stuff, but just as a rule of thumb. Okay, and then I move to more of a 58 degree. Now, when we use a 58 degree, or some people don't use 58, 56, 54, whatever, but we've got more loft on this, right? So we can utilize more spin, more height, and we'd use that when we maybe have a little bit of a higher tariff shot. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is pretty much the same technique as that, but with a 58. So I would roughly land a 58 halfway, or sometimes 2/3. It would still have a little bit of check, but then it would release a little bit. Same technique. I always have the handle slightly higher, just to get the heel of the club slightly off the ground. Ball slightly back, weight forward, arms on the torso. Again, try not to change anything and just rock my shoulders. And even that there, I call it slightly heavy, but because my technique was pretty solid, it's still gonna work out just fine. Now, say for argument's sake, I wanted to create a little bit more spin and I had a lie like this. Then what I would do in this instance is I would use a little bit more of the bounce. So what I like to think about when I want to use the bounce is I don't want the handle traveling as far as it did on that shot. So when I'm doing my rocking one, you can see the handle's traveling a long way and the club is kind of moving a bit more like this. So there's not much wrist or release whatsoever. So if I want to play a little bit more spin, I'm going to picture in my mind that the handle almost stays where it is and I allow the club head to swing a little bit more. And in this way, you can see there's more release and I'm utilizing that bounce. Very similar setup for me. I play the ball slightly back of center, weight on the front. I keep it there. Arms are also on the torso. Again, if you watch the handle here, it won't move as far. And you can see there's a lot more release and that ball is going to spin an awful lot more than the first one. So if I'm just a little bit short-sided and I don't want to do anything funky, I'll play that shot, which is pretty simple. As long as I keep my low point forward by positioning my weight and allow the handle to work, I should drop that club pretty much on the back of that ball most times and create just a little bit more friction and that ball will just stop a little bit more. And then the fourth shot we'll talk about is, obviously that we've got flop shots and whatnot, but this would be just a slightly higher shot. I call this like a cut release shot, okay? Or a cut spinner. And very simple, all I do on this shot, this would be when I've got a little bit more of a soggy lie, more in winter conditions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little bit more high, face open, stand a little bit closer to it, and I'm almost going to feel like I work out to in and work the toe across the golf ball. So what it's going to do, it's going to have a steep angle of attack, it's going to help me hit down, but also the fact that I'm lifting the handle up is going to help it stop digging, especially with the face open, and you'll see it'll almost have a bit of fade spin on it, and it will stop nice and quickly. So face slightly open, handle slightly up. Again, I'm standing a lot closer than the other one now. My feet are further to the left, and I'm going to feel like everything's the same, but I'm going to work from out to in, and work across the golf ball, and you can see how much softer that ball's running out to the hole. And we hold it. I wish I was aiming that way, but I was aiming towards it. And you can see that one there was carrying a lot less pace. So, based upon them 4 shots there, it's very important you pick the right shot for the situation you're in. The way I've gone through them, I would describe as least risk to most risk. So if you're a moderately good chipper, there's certain times where it's worth taking the risk, but often, as Tiger Woods would say, you'd rather go low than go high. So if you can go low, play the percentages. If you can go high and you fancy it, give it a go. I hope that helps.